Welcome to this daily PBJ devotional. Read 1 Kings 16, Amos 2, and Psalm 119, 41 through 88. This devotional is about 1 Kings 16. Then the word of the Lord came to Jehu, son of Hanani, against Baasha, saying, Even though I lifted you out of the dust and made you ruler over my people Israel, you have walked in the way of Jeroboam, and have caused my people Israel to sin, and to provoke me to anger by their sins. So now I will consume Baasha and his house, and I will make your house like that of Jeroboam, son of Nebat. Anyone belonging to Baasha who dies in the city will be eaten by dogs, and anyone who dies in the field will be eaten by the birds of the air. As for the rest of the acts of Baasha, along with his accomplishments and might, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the Kings of Israel? And Baasha rested with his fathers, and was buried in Tirzah, and his son Elah reigned in his place. Moreover, the word of the Lord came through the prophet Jehu, son of Hanani, against Baasha and his house, because of all the evil he had done in the sight of the Lord, provoking him to anger with the work of his hands, and becoming like the house of Jeroboam, but also because Baasha had struck down the house of Jeroboam. In the 26th year of Asa's reign over Judah, Elah, son of Baasha, became king of Israel, and he reigned in Tirzah 2 years. However, while Elah was in Tirzah getting drunk in the house of Arza, the steward of his household there, Elah's servant Zimri, the commander of half his chariots, conspired against him. So in the 27th year of Asa's reign over Judah, Zimri went in, struck Elah down, and killed him, and Zimri reigned in his place. As soon as Zimri began to reign, and was seated on the throne, he struck down the entire household of Baasha. He did not leave a single male, whether a kinsman or a friend. So Zimri destroyed the entire household of Baasha, according to the word that the Lord had spoken against Baasha through Jehu the prophet. This happened because of all the sins Baasha and his son Elah had committed and had caused Israel to commit, provoking the Lord, the God of Israel, to anger with their worthless idols. As for the rest of the acts of Elah, along with all his accomplishments, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the Kings of Israel? In the 27th year of Asa's reign over Judah, Zimri reigned in Tirzah for 7 days. Now the troops were encamped against Gibbethon of the Philistines, and the people in the camp heard that Zimri had conspired against the king and struck him down. So there in the camp that very day, all Israel proclaimed Omri, the commander of the army, king over Israel. Then Omri and all the Israelites marched up from Gibbethon and besieged Tirzah. When Zimri saw that the city was captured, he entered the citadel of the royal palace and burned it down upon himself. So he died, because of the sins he had committed, doing evil in the sight of the Lord, and following the example of Jeroboam, and the sin he had committed and had caused Israel to commit. As for the rest of the acts of Zimri, and the treason he committed, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the Kings of Israel? At that time, the people of Israel were divided. Half of the people supported Tibni, son of Ginath, as king, and half supported Omri. But the followers of Omri proved stronger than those of Tibni, son of Ginath. So Tibni died, and Omri became king. In the 31st year of Asa's reign over Judah, Omri became king of Israel, and he reigned 12 years, 6 of them in Tirzah. He bought the hill of Samaria from Shemer for 2 talents of silver, and built a city there, calling it Samaria after the name of Shemer, who had owned the hill. But Omri did evil in the sight of the Lord, and acted more wickedly than all who were before him. For he walked in all the ways of Jeroboam, son of Nebat, and in his sins, which he caused Israel to commit, provoking the Lord, the God of Israel, to anger with their worthless idols. As for the rest of the acts of Omri, along with his accomplishments and the might he exercised, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the Kings of Israel? And Omri rested with his fathers, and was buried in Samaria, and his son Ahab reigned in his place. In the 38th year of Asa's reign over Judah, Ahab, son of Omri, became king of Israel, and he reigned in Samaria 22 years. However, Ahab, son of Omri, did evil in the sight of the Lord, more than all who were before him. And as if it were not enough for him to walk in the sins of Jeroboam, son of Nebat, he even married Jezebel, the daughter of Ethbaal, king of the Sidonians, and he proceeded to serve and worship Baal. First, Ahab set up an altar for Baal in the temple of Baal that he had built in Samaria. Then he set up an Asherah pole. Thus Ahab did more to provoke the Lord, the God of Israel, to anger than all the kings of Israel before him. In Ahab's days, Hiel the Bethelite rebuilt Jericho. At the cost of Abiram, his firstborn, he laid its foundation, and at the cost of Segub, his youngest, he set up its gates, according to the word that the Lord had spoken through Joshua, son of Nun. This is God's word. Evil is evil, right? If one sin condemns a person to eternity in hell, then it doesn't really matter whether you are the least of sinners or the greatest of sinners, right? Not so. What I just said may sound logical, but it is false. It is true that one sin is too many for God to overlook. His perfect justice demands complete accountability for every sin. But that does not mean that each sin is of equal weight, or that every sinner is equal in God's sight in terms of their wickedness. Sometimes we sin because the comfort of the crowd sinning around us gives us confidence to ignore the warnings of our conscience, and then we give in to the lusts of our hearts. But there are some people who are leaders when it comes to wickedness. They are innovative in the ways they find to sin, or they are more consistent and aggressive in how they sin. Ahab, king of the northern kingdom of Israel, was one such leader of wickedness. We saw that in verse 30 when we read that Ahab, son of Omri, did more evil in the eyes of the Lord than any of those before him. Again, that's verse 30 from the NIV. There were many wicked kings who led Israel before him, but Ahab surpassed them all. And how did he do that? Innovation, baby. The passage says he not only considered it trivial to commit the sins of Jeroboam, son of Nebat, but he also married Jezebel, daughter of Ethbaal, king of the Sidonians, and began to serve Baal and worship him. He set up an altar for Baal in the temple of Baal that he built in Samaria. That's verses 31 and 32 from the NIV. Here's my translation. He happily and without pause did everything the kings preceding him did, and he brought Baal worship to Israel, even institutionalizing it by building a temple in Samaria, the capital city of the northern kingdom of Israel. Verse 33 says, Ahab also made an Asherah pole. And this phrase helps explain why this form of idolatry is worse than the idolatry that Jeroboam created in Israel. One key difference is that Jeroboam's idolatry was a perversion of the worship of the true God Yahweh. He created golden calves, but he credited them with the Exodus story. You can see 1 Kings 12, 28 through 30 for that. What Jeroboam did was idolatrous and sinful and offensive to God, no doubt. But he did it for political reasons, as 1 Kings 12, 26 through 28 tells us. And he tied his idolatry to Israel's history, or at least he tried to. Baal worship is in a different category altogether. Baal worship was imported from outside of Israel through Ahab's marriage to Jezebel. We saw that in chapter 16, verse 31. And the reference to the Asherah pole that Ahab installed, according to verse 33, suggests that Baal Asherah worship had a sexual component to it. Baal was the male, and Asherah was the female in this unholy idol couple. We're not given details in the scriptures of how these pagan idols were worshipped, but we know this. Ahab's actions in creating a temple for Baal and setting up an Asherah pole did more to arouse the anger of the Lord, the God of Israel, than did all the kings of Israel before him. That's what verse 33b in the NIV says. Something about the way Baal and Asherah were worshipped was way worse than the other forms of idolatry that Israel practiced. At the very least, it would cause them to blend in more with their pagan neighbors instead of becoming the holy people God set them apart to be in his covenants. The lesson I'm taking away from this passage today has to do with leadership and sin. Ahab was a leader in his sin because he was willing to sin the way everyone else before him did and go beyond them. This is especially bad because, as king of Israel, he would create a climate where such sins were acceptable and openly practiced. We cannot force anyone to sin, but we can cause people to stumble into sin. Those who look to us for leadership see what we find acceptable and unacceptable in the decisions we make and in the way we live our lives. And this can give them the moral go-ahead to follow their own evil desires because it allows them to rationalize by saying, hey, if King Ahab is hanging out around the Asherah pole, then there must be nothing wrong with it. But Jesus warned us that causing others who are immature, impressionable, and under our leadership to sin is something that God hates. Jesus said this, if anyone causes one of these little ones, those who believe in me, to stumble, it would be better for them to have a large millstone hung around their neck and to be drowned in the depths of the sea. Woe to the world because of the things that cause people to stumble. Such things must come, but woe to the person through whom they come. Jesus said that in Matthew 18, verses 6 and 7, and that's the NIV's translation. Consider then the effect your sins have on your children and on other Christians who look to you for moral leadership. It is one thing to answer to God for our own sins, but Jesus promised accountability for those who mislead others into sin. So think about your own life. Not only the things that you do that may be sinful, but think about the effect that your moral leadership has on other people. And think about the people you follow and whether they are leading you into sinful situations. Take some time to consider that today, and I'll see you next time. May God bless you. I hope you have a great day today.